B.A.T, the Bureau of Astral Troubleshooters. A word of warning before you start playing this game. You need to download a copy of the manual and read it before playing the game, or you'll find the game pretty much impenetrable. Not only in terms of the plot, because there's absolutely no intro sequence, but also in terms of functionality. For example, your very first click of the game will start you up with a pre-rolled character, unless you right-click instead, which takes you into character generation. There are no on-screen instructions to tell you this. Likewise, some of the more obscure functions like programming your Bob computer. Which brings me to my first question. B.A.T goes pretty far into dropping you into the deep end, even for games of the era, and even if you read the manual. We're so used to tutorials and hand-holding levels these days that it really feels like what it is, a game from 1989. Do you think this is just due to technical limitations of the time, or was there a different philosophy at work in games design in the late 80s? Did games creators have more respect for players' autonomy and intelligence, or were they simply unable to squeeze all that info onto a disc? In other words, what are the pros and cons of a steep learning curve, either in terms of plot, theme, or gameplay? Another interesting point that comes up from the manual is that the developers considered this to be a non-genre defined game, or rather a new genre they called the Dinorama. I'm not sure that I agree with this, as it really seems to be just an adventure game with RPG elements, but admittedly it does have some mini games like gambling and shooting, and then there's the programming aspect as well. So at the very least, it's interesting to see what the developers were trying to do. So the second question is, how have our ideas and expectations of game genres changed over the years? And finally, the theme. B.A.T interests me because it's an example of cyberpunk, a theme that I feel is underrepresented in gaming. Even B.A.T is borderline, but I think the grungy urban setting and the Bob implant computer means that it qualifies, even if it's not the more standard William Gibson-inspired vision of cyberpunk. But while there are thousands and thousands of fantasy or regular sci-fi games, cyberpunk as a subgenre is seldom represented, and even more rarely represented well. Apart from Deus Ex, System Shock, and my favourite, BloodNet, I'd be hard-pressed to name many good cyberpunk games. Although with the new Shadowrun and Cyberpunk 2077 coming out soon, this might change. But anyway, am I wrong? Are there good games that I'm not thinking of? Are there any good reasons that cyberpunk is a difficult theme to represent in games? Is cyberpunk underrepresented in games, and why or why not? Anyway, thanks for being a part of GameReader, and I'll see you on the forums.